on November the 13th in the year of our Lord 2025. Got a lot of great information for you. Let me go ahead and click Murtek on Rumble and jump over here to my Rumble page. This is the video that we're watching tonight, episode 1745. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it. So let me jump in here, close out the live chat, slide down here, and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. Okay, we have information from Vince Dow, Just the News, Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 Report. But before we get into that, I do need to give a shout out to Maxine Griffith, just started following my channel. Lux6661 just started following my channel. W Ness just started following, W Ness just started following my channel. And P Bailey just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Mrs. Flintstone 17, Ms. Flintstone 17, reposted my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1744. Fisher C45 commented on my extra 527B. And Debbie BS commented on my extra 529A, 529B, and 529C. So thank you, folks, for your comments and reposting my videos. I appreciate that very much. Let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Okay, here we go. Let's get up here. And I do have a comment of the day from Fisher C45. Let me just go ahead and share that with you. Murtek is a best. All right. Lying Stephen Smith, who's an independent only votes Democrat. He is fake. Save your state. Walk away from the Democrat platform. They are against your best interest and the source of U.S. problems. Vote MAGA Red. I couldn't agree with you more, Fisher C45. All right, let's jump back here and let's go ahead and get started with Vince Dow. Trump-Epstein bombshell backfires on House Democrats as key victim refutes liberal accusations. I don't doubt that a bit. Let's see what he has to say.
To bring up. Now, the White House is noting, quote, shown to have known about underage girls being part of a sex ring? No, you're just making stuff up like you always do because you're a fake news hack responding here to Sam Stein. And another article here notes, in the book, she describes meeting Trump once at Mar-a-Lago where her father worked, but doesn't accuse Trump of wrongdoing. Trump, quote, could not have been friendlier, according to Virginia, adding that he offered to help her find babysitting work, which appears to have been the full extent of this relationship here, right? So yes, the leaked emails attributed to Jeffrey Epstein's correspondence don't actually confirm that Trump participated in, enabled, or even ignored Epstein's misconduct, also true. In fact, when read carefully, they can be interpreted as evidence of the opposite, that Trump distanced himself once he became aware of questionable behavior. The line suggesting that he, quote, asked Ghislaine to stop implies disapproval. Yes, obviously, right? If the letters are legitimate, it shows that he made an effort to put an end to what was happening rather than trying to conceal it, which, by the way, according to stuff we've known throughout the years, is also the case, right? Trump was actually one of the biggest cooperators when it came to taking down Epstein, even before he was the president.
Our current president has had relationships with Epstein in the past, and there are those Katie Johnson and maybe other victims who have accused Trump of being involved in things like this. In my experience, Trump supporters will not listen to anything along those lines. Obviously, we're not a court of law here right now, but are those claims that case was dropped? It was dropped before it went to court. In your opinion, as a lawyer and your experience, is there anything you can say as to the validity of those claims, or whether or not there will be any more about that? Any more about that?
Nothing at all. The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, He is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that. I definitely heard that, and I don't know that it was Trump himself as opposed to a manager there.
Trump's club, so
yeah,
people credit him.
I've heard the rumor that Epstein was kicked out of there for allegedly trying to pick up somebody's daughter or something like that. But I think I did chase that down as far as I could, and never was able to confirm it.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but it does appear from the context that very daughter was this accuser, right, Virginia? Someone can correct me on that, but, just something to point out. And again, we've known this, guys. But the Democrats are trying to, no, it's Trump-Epstein bombshell. Okay. Now, it is worth noting, too, that Michael Wolff was directly advising Epstein on how to manipulate public narratives and even hang Trump politically. That's not the behavior of someone with hard evidence of guilt. Yes, obviously not, right? They weren't saying, oh, they're going to bring these criminal charges. We know what happened. No, they're saying, oh, let's try to make it look like you guys were connected. That's literally what they were saying, which, by the way, about a decade later, what are the Democrats now doing? Actually following through with Jeffrey Epstein's original intent with all of this. Very interesting. And Michael Wolff, It's the tactic of someone trying to manufacture leverage. Absolutely. So rather than demonstrating complicity, these documents paint a picture of absolutely, yes, opportunists within Epstein's orbit trying to exploit proximity to Trump for political or personal gain. The correspondence further lacks corroborating details, verifiable timestamps, or third-party validation. The only reasonable conclusion is that while the emails are intriguing, they don't provide any meaningful evidentiary standard of wrongdoing. I would even say the opposite. I don't think they're intriguing. If anything, they're intriguing because they prove the exact opposite of what people are trying to claim here, but that's certainly true. The White House further points out that Democrats redacted the victim's name because the victim said Trump couldn't have been friendlier and was a gentleman, and she didn't witness any wrongdoing. True. But of course, what are the Democrats saying, right? Here's Dean Withers as one example. According to Epstein, Trump knew of his crime and spent hours alone with a victim. Which victim? Doing what? Doesn't matter. Spent hours with the victim. This is 100 times bigger than Watergate. Trump is over. Really? Again, we've only heard that for decades, but, maybe Dean does have a point. It is similar to Watergate in the sense that Watergate was a hit job to take down an effective and popular president by a Democrat party and a deep state and a weak Republican party who just allowed it all to happen, So maybe there's a point. It is like Watergate, but no, in all seriousness, so there you have that. Here's someone pointing out, right? So now Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Epstein's cellmate in all different, court documents here are all claiming that Trump is innocent, right? You think Obama personally implicates himself and pushes Russiagate if he has blackmail? This is not going to work out the way the left thinks it will. No, absolutely not, right? I actually would like to make the analogy. This issue is rapidly becoming like the left wing's QAnon, okay? Remember that for a long time. The walls are closing in. Hillary Clinton's gonna go to jail, okay? All the Russiagate people, right? I feel like Fox News every single night from like 2017 to 2019 was like, we have a new Russiagate bombshell that's showing the Democrats are guilty and they did this and that, crossfire hurricane, and then, what ends up happening? Nothing burger. And I think mutually on both sides, right? The American public got just fatigued overall of the whole Russia thing. That's what's going to happen. I think the Democrats actually are overplaying their hand here because much like the right wing, by the way, did on the same issue, right? You promise things, you bark up a tree for so long, you end up with nothing, then, inevitably you're going to become the boy who cried wolf. which is basically the Democrats on every single issue, right? It's like, oh, Trump is a fascist. He's taking over. He's going to ruin everything. And then he doesn't do it time and time again. The economy is going to crash. The economy doesn't crash, or whatever it is they want to say, right? They just become, I guess, panicans in a sense, although, you know, more like a Democrat panickers, whatever. But, you know, there you essentially have it. Now, one thing I will give credence to, and I think maybe this is a good point. Okay, Richard Barris these days typically is one of the panicans, but maybe he is making a point here. I'll give him that, right? It says Democrats are now selectively starting to release emails from the Epstein files. Because he did not listen at the time, it's going to look really bad for Donald Trump, fair or not. This was easily avoidable. Wait until you hear what Democrat staffers are preparing. And it's like, look, obviously they're going to be dishonest. Obviously they're sharing these things out of context, but it is true to a degree, right? Because the DOJ, because Pam Bondi fumbled this whole issue so many months ago, this is indeed, right, what the Democrats are now going to do. They're going to just try to release things out of context and make it look like they're the ones, you know, acting in transparency when they're acting with equal or I honestly far less transparency than the DOJ even originally was. But yeah, I mean, I will, like, look, I disagree with him on a lot these days. I think he's like overblowing a lot of like, oh, Trump is, the walls are closing in, everything's over, we're going to get destroyed in the midterms, all this stuff. But, you know, that is something that does frustrate me for sure, right? You know, he basically handed the Democrats a lot of ammunition through this. But that said, okay, you know, we're still going to sit here and push back against the lies. But yes, it would objectively be a good situation if the Democrats never had this ammunition to begin with. But that said, I do hope this is a wake-up call for the panicans. I mean that sincerely. I'm almost glad to a degree the Democrats are doing this, because if you go on X right now, you will see just a divided right wing, right? Everyone is like turning on each other. People, oh, the Trump administration betrayed me. I'm not going to vote anymore. You know, let's let the Democrats win and give amnesty to 40 million migrants or something like that. And it's like, hopefully this wake-up call, this story, like reminds people of how dishonest and dirty the opposition is, right? And that as you sit here and just bitterly see that, like, you know, the most consequential president in your lifetime, this is what they're doing. This is how hard they're working to try to stop him. I don't know. Just some thoughts. Just some thoughts, right? Maybe this is something that hopefully kind of reminds people of, you know, where the real problem, the real enemy lies, and it's over there, right? It's on that left wing. But I don't know. That said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next.
Okay, until next time. Here we go. This does come from Vince Dow. I've given him a thumbs up. I am subscribed to his channel. Has great information. Okay, let's jump back here. And let me close out the live chat. Debbie BS joined us in the chat. Let me move down here to just the news. The economic impact of Zohran Mamdani. Okay, let's check this out.
Everything about business is incredibly complicated. And I think a lot of people like to pretend that business owners sit back, they enjoy their profits. But, you know, if you ever walk into a grocery store, there are a million things on the store shelves. They're all pretty affordable if you really think about it. And at the end of the day, it is incredibly complicated to make that work. Look, the government can't even figure out how to fill potholes or get your driver's license to you, you know, in a quick amount of time sitting in a DMV. Do you really think the government and government bureaucrats can figure out the supply chains to get hundreds of thousands of items on store shelves across a region? Absolutely not. Grocery stores already operate at a profit margin of 1% to 3%, and it's a miracle. In fact, when Boris Yeltsin came to visit America when the Soviet Union was collapsing, what made him break down in tears was seeing a functional grocery store, because they could not make that work in the Soviet Union. So that's why it always fails, and why, frankly, this is doomed to fail again in New York.
Richard, how quickly can these socialist initiatives that Zohran Mamdani wants to employ, how quickly can they happen? Because I talked about this last night on the show. I think a lot of people think that the worst case scenario is that Zohran Mamdani can do everything that he has said he wants to do. Now, the reality of it is that as a city mayor, as big as the city is, I personally don't think that he has the power to do everything that he wants to do. Now, my concern is not that he can do it all, it's that he can't, or that it happens a lot slower than he thinks it will. And then you've got this whole generation of Americans who watched young New Yorkers put Zohran Mamdani in power, and they watch the rest of the world who has half a brain that functions in economy say it's going to destroy New York City. And those young people are going to say, see, you told us that this was going to happen, that it was going to destroy the city, and it didn't. And then we're going to be in a scenario where they use that as a campaign point when you push people with a socialist agenda into offices that have even more power and can actually do these things quickly.
Amen. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. So two things in particular, both the tax increases he wants to do, which if he could do, would be crushing for New York businesses, and then the debt levels he wants to incur to fund all these programs. Both of those are capped by the state government. And so he would need the state government, the governor, the legislature, to sign off on these plans before he could do them. So it's not to say he won't do them, but that's a much harder hurdle to get through. The state government probably won't let him do in full what he's talking about. And you're right, this is going to be a rallying cry, a political campaign strategy, but he'll fail to meet all of his promises, and he'll use his charm and false words to pretend as if he got these things done. But make no mistake, the things he will do will be disasters. They'll raise prices, destroy businesses, decline job opportunities. And you're right, the idea disease of socialism spreading, that's the real threat here.
All right. There you have it, folks. You know, they just make stuff up as they go along. Now, you know, I mentioned, actually I think it was like day before yesterday, it might have been Monday, that I talked about how they keep saying that Trump isn't bringing prices down. Trump isn't bringing prices down. You know, it costs more this year for Thanksgiving than it did last year. Okay, and I mentioned that I was going to go buy a turkey for 59 cents a pound. Okay, I was mistaken. Because actually, what I did at Meijer is I bought a turkey for 49 cents a pound. Okay? And if you think that's, you know, rare here in Indianapolis, over at Kroger, their weekly ad came out, and guess what? Turkeys are 49 cents a pound. Spiral sliced ham, $1.69 a pound. Okay? I don't recall paying that for it last year. I think I paid quite a bit more for it last year. Potatoes, an 8-ounce bag, like $3.99 a pound. I believe last year I paid like $6.99 a pound for an 8-pound, or $6.99 for a bag, an 8-pound bag of potatoes. So they just have no problem of just making shit up and throwing it out there and hoping people will believe it. It's so disgusting. All right, getting back here, let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Just the News. I am following the channel. Boom. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and move on with Dr. Steve Turley, because he's got some great information to talk about here with Zohran has officially been stopped. Here we go.
Again, as you can see, we had an amazing time last night at the new St. Andrews College event here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So cool getting to meet so many of you and chat and get to know you better. I'll be in the studio later on today. I'm about to head back right now, but I could not wait to comment on the absolute shutdown of Zohran Mamdani by none other than New York Governor Kathy Hochul. The guy hasn't even been sworn in yet, and virtually all of his billion-dollar promises have imploded like the Hindenburg. I mean, seriously, this is like beyond the worst train wreck. And just like the whole fallout from the disastrous Schumer shutdown defeat, Mamdani's collapse promises to bring down the entire Democrat Party with it. So here's the setup. Imagine the city being promised that it could have everything for free, right? Free buses, free childcare, free food, free housing. And then all those promises officially hit a brick wall. And as it turns out, it's a Democrat wall. It's the state's top Democrat, their governor, who comes out and says, yo, Mamdani, yo, There ain't no free ride. Everything you want is dependent on taxing the rich. That's precisely what Mamdani campaigned on. In fact, it was worse than that. He actually doubled down on promising to tax what he called whiter neighborhoods. I mean, this is literally tribalist politics, blood vengeance 101. Everything Mamdani wants to do is depend on raising taxes on New York's rich and affluent, but he can't do it alone. The New York State Constitution requires that tax hikes go through the state legislature in Albany and get signed by the governor. Now, of course, he never mentioned that on the campaign trail. I mean, why would he? He was too busy promising free stuff for everyone. Well, the campaign, of course, is now over, and reality is finally hitting. Here's Governor.
Okay. The thing that is interesting to me is I believe that Governor Hochul, I've seen some interviews with her before the election, and they ask about this, and she not once said anything about that, well, that would have to go through the state legislature before we increase taxes. Why didn't she mention that before? In fact, I talked about it. I said, now here in Indiana, I don't know what the laws are in New York. This may have to go through the state legislature, but we have state tax and we also have a county tax. A Marion County tax is about 0.5%. You know, they may have the same thing in New York. I don't know. But this may be something that has to go through the state legislature before he can start raising taxes in New York City. And that's exactly what has to be done in New York. Now, I don't know how the taxes got established here in Marion County. It may have gone through the state legislature in order to allow Marion County to charge 0.5% income tax. So here you go. They just lie and then continue to cover up their lies until they just can't anymore. And then it's like, well, it's no big deal as far as the mainstream media is concerned. But if you get a Republican to blink the wrong way, well, it's worse than Watergate.
Hochul.
We know that Mamdani does want to tax the rich more, bring it up about 2%. He can't do that on his own. You've previously said that you wouldn't be raising taxes. Have you reconsidered that stance?
No, I would say one energetic rally does not get me to change my positions, I assure you. But I do hear people's voices. I process what everybody says, but I'm also have to balance governing this state and making sure that those people who are actually the reason we have a generous, supportive budget that helps lift people up, it's their revenues that we tax. 1.5% of New Yorkers cover about 1/3 of our budget. That's enormous. I'm concerned about outmigration of people who are the ones who are supporting our budget. I cannot make up for that with middle-class tax increases. I cannot do that to the middle class and the struggling New Yorkers. So this is the balance. I mean, this is my position.
Oops. I mean, seriously, oops. You just had a mayoral campaign where the candidate who won ran on making promises as if he was running for middle school president. And after the election, the principal comes in and tells the kid, we can't do all that stuff. We don't have a budget for that. The mayor of New York cannot raise income taxes, period. And what the governor just said is something literally every economically literate analyst has said for years. Capital is mobile. Capital moves very easily. One of the unwritten laws of economics is when companies face unprofitability through taxation, they always leave. Companies have to turn to profit or they don't work. They fold. The only way a company works is if it's able to charge more than what it costs to produce its product or service. That's how employees get paid. That's what attracts investors. Companies have to make money, and they make money by charging more for their products and services than the expenses accrued by offering those products and services. And the major expense for companies is taxes. And if those taxes threaten the profitability of a business, what do? they pick up and relocate to where those taxes are reduced. This is why red states are booming and blue states are declining. And Governor Hochul, as you just heard with your own ears, Governor Hochul knows it. She knows that if she so much as even considers raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers who are already paying the highest income taxes of any state in the nation, she knows they're gone. And when they're gone, they take everything: direct tax payments, jobs, income taxes from those jobs, sales taxes from employees, and property taxes from now empty buildings. And the guy hasn't even been sworn in yet, and we're already seeing a mass exodus from New York. And those fleeing ain't their welfare recipients. They're the ones paying for the welfare recipients. But if you thought that was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet.
If you are one of the more than 50 million using most citizen for its immune percent from right here, one day, right now, Turley
Fantasies.
Americans take charge of their health with confidence and care.
So almost on cue, Hochul's blowing apart Mamdani's socialist fantasies has triggered open war inside the Democrat Party. Activists erupted on social media. Hashtags like primary Hochul and tax the rich now started trending. AOC's orbit is already plotting to replace Hochul, while moderate Democrats panic over losing business and donor support. And this on top of the growing calls to oust New York Senator Chuck Schumer over his shutdown disaster, and Hakeem Jeffries as well, the House Minority Leader. He's getting primary. But that's just the start. You see, the civil war in New York's Democrat ranks mirrors a national reckoning. And it's giving President Trump an extraordinary opportunity to refocus his America First domestic agenda. And that's, of course, because America First is actually rooted in reality. Trump is first and foremost a businessman. He understands economics. He understands finance. By contrast, blue states like New York are forced to face reality as job losses mount, investment flees, and voters realize the cost of chasing leftist illusions. And while Mamdani and Hochul battle, everyday New Yorkers pay the price. Business owners pause investments, landlords panic, and the state's tax base continues to shrink. Again, remember, currently, right now, the top 1% of New York City taxpayers pay 40% of the city's income tax. If Mamdani's plan were implemented, that would rise to 60%. So what that does is it creates what economists call a catastrophic concentration risk, meaning that the entire city budget becomes dangerously dependent on a tiny group of highly mobile residents who can afford to leave. Why do you think Venezuela collapsed into such a disaster after the socialist revolutions? Because of the catastrophic concentration risk. All of Chavez's promises were built on confiscating Venezuela's wealthiest residents. So what did they do? They fled. They picked up and they left. And now there's no longer any liquidity. There's no longer any tax base from which to fulfill their socialist promises of free stuff. So basically everybody starves. Welcome to North Korea. Welcome to Cuba. The only way economies thrive, like we saw when China adopted the Singapore system, is if you allow the human entrepreneurial spirit to flourish. And Mamdani wouldn't know that spirit if it bit him in the arse. So the key here is that capital's already fleeing the city and the state. That's forcing their governor, Hochul, to shut down any prospects of raising taxes on New York's wealthy, which in effect has officially blown up Mamdani's promises of turning the city into a socialist mecca. That socialist shutdown has enraged the progressive far left, who are now preparing to primary the whole of their establishment in a brutal Democrat civil war, all the while President Trump and the Republicans pivot to implement a thriving America First domestic agenda, awakening economic flourishing. Strap yourselves in. This is going to be one awesome ride. See you back in the studio later today. God bless.
All right, there you have it, folks. Great information, if you ask me. Okay, let me show you here.
So the key here
is that this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Let's take a break here and listen to some information about 1775 coffee. Good stuff.
Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash.
All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler.
$170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is.
Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does.
What? No, I can't. Okay, folks. Great information. All right, let's jump over here to X22 report. Atlanta Fed Bostic retires, leaving an opening. Trump is taking back control of the economy. I certainly hope so. You know, they keep hollering about prices aren't going down, houses are unaffordable. I'll tell you what, folks, the interest rates need to come down. And that would help make houses affordable. Okay, they act like Trump's not doing anything. He's allowed open drilling for oil. The energy prices come down, that's going to cause other things to go down. I mean, you know, when you have to transport something from a factory to a store, the cost of that transportation has to be added into the cost of that product once it gets to the store. The same thing with the cost of the product coming from the farms to the grocery stores. The cost of that transportation has to be added into the cost of the product in the stores. The more it costs to transport that stuff, the more it's going to cost for the product. I mean, these stores are in the business to make money, and they pay employees. You know, that's how the capital system works. It's unbelievable. Let's take a listen here to X22 report. Got some great stuff.
Making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, everything that they told the public is not coming true. Trump's tariffs are not destroying the economy. They're not creating inflation. We're not heading into a recession. Actually, Trump is doing the opposite. He's bringing out of the recession that they have caused. And what people are noticing as we approach Thanksgiving, people are noticing that the prices of food are coming down. And we can see Walmart has already said, listen, this is the cheapest Thanksgiving we've seen in a long time. Target right now is reducing prices on 3,000 groceries and essentials. They're lowering prices on thousands of items that shoppers frequently buy, and it will make a difference.
Wait a minute. I thought CNN and MSNBC was telling everybody that this Thanksgiving is going to be more expensive than last. How can that be if prices are going down? They are lying to you, folks. That's why you need to tell your friends, contacts, family members to come here, Murtech.com and Murtech on Rumble, so you can get the truth.
For families managing tight household budgets during the holidays, and this is coming from the chief merchandising officer of the food. And basically, the price cuts build on Target's growing affordability efforts on the holiday season. The retailer highlighted that this is the lowest price ever for Thanksgiving meal. So just like Walmart, Target is doing the same exact thing. Now, if inflation is a problem, how are they doing this? Think about that for a second. Think about it. Fuel prices have come way, way down, and they're going to continue to drop. Trump actually is keeping inflation very, very steady. So this is absolutely incredible right now. And you can see what's going to happen as we move into the future. As energy prices continually lower, prices are going to continually come down. Now, does this remove all the inflation that we've had? Absolutely not.
Okay, I'm going to pause this just for a second. We've talked about prices coming down. I saw something on Facebook today and shared that. Let me jump over here. Okay. This is from Diana Romeo. Today this is what I paid at Circle K. This much. 1.73 per gallon. Unleaded. So now I looked her up. She's in Alabama. Okay. What was the price of gas last year? Almost $4. Huh. And people are bitching that prices aren't coming down. Where the hell are they getting this? All right, let's jump back here.
What it really means is that the transportation, the production, and everything like that, that is going to become a little bit cheaper. But the inflation that we've already accumulated over time, well, that pretty much stays. But I do believe Trump, in the end, he'll be getting rid of that. And how do we know that we have inflation? Well, all you got to do is look at the mint, the Philadelphia mint. Because remember, we can't even produce a penny. It costs almost 4 cents to produce 1 penny. That means the value of the currency is losing its value because we don't even have enough currency, to actually create the currency.
Now, I've mentioned this before. In my job, I was an IT specialist, and I was sent to Australia. I worked for a pharmaceutical company. They opened up a branch in Australia. This pharmaceutical company. I worked in IT for clinical trials. Okay, we created the database where, when the information came in, it was loaded into the database, and then that was all bundled together and sent to the FDA for approval or decline. They were opening up an office in Australia. I went to Australia. Okay, and at that time, when I went to Australia, the currency rate was about 51 cents, 52 cents of US dollars was worth an Australian dollar. You could buy an Australian dollar for about 52 cents. And the prices were comparable in Australia for a product as they were here in the United States. I thought, that's odd. It cost me half as much, to be here. But the interesting thing about it is they don't have pennies in Australia. They have things that might be like $1.37 or something like that. And what happens when you pay for it, you pay for your products, they round it to the nearest nickel. So if you bought something for $1.37, you actually paid $1.35 for it when you checked out. If you had something that cost $1.38, you actually paid $1.40. So they don't have pennies in Australia, or at least they didn't. This was in the year 2000, before 9/11. So I don't know. That might be something that happens now. I've seen signs in a few places. There's a penny shortage. So I wonder if they're trying to do the same thing that they did in Australia a quarter of a century ago.
That should tell you everything you need to know. You see, in a sound money system, this wouldn't be a problem. But the only reason we have this here in 2025, going into 2026, is because the value of the currency has declined so much that we can't even produce the penny. If this continues on, we won't even be able to produce the nickel later on. Because right now, if it's taken 4 cents to produce a penny, in a couple of years, it'll be 8 cents to produce the penny, and we won't be able to produce the nickel. So really think about that for a second. And that actually shows you how bad the central bank system really is. And we could see the Fed right now, they are now fracturing because, again, Trump has put certain individuals into place within the Fed, And those people that have been left over in the Fed, you could see there's a division right now. Actually, Ed Election Wizard put this out and said, Fed officials are fracturing over a December rate cut after inflation-focused hawks pushed for a pause after last month's reduction. And when you look at inflation, inflation is not doing what they thought it was going to do. It's not going up. And actually, with the lower fuel prices, with Trump keeping the inflation very steady, things are starting to come down, like rent, for example. Zero Hedge put this out and said October inflation unexpectedly crumbles amid biggest drop in rents in 15 years. So this is going to be a major, major problem for the Federal Reserve. And you can see that there are certain individuals within the Federal Reserve, like Marsland. They are now saying, listen, we need to push forward. We need more rate cuts. And I do believe he's pushing for a 0.5 point. And of course, we know that Powell and those people above Powell, they do not want the Fed to cut rates. But we could see every step of the way, they are now losing control. And we see there's a Fed head in the Atlanta Fed, Bostic. He is now retiring. And he put out a press release. And remember, this individual is supposed to be the first, he is the first African-American and openly gay president of a regional Federal Reserve Bank. And what did he do during his time there? Well, he's best known for a big trading scandal where trades on Bostic's behalf took place during a prohibited blackout period around the Federal Open Market Committee meeting 154 times between March 2018 and March of 2023. He also filed an inaccurate disclosure form, held more Treasury securities than allowed, and twice executed trades that were different than those he sought central bank clearance for. In 2024, the Fed's in-house watchdog said Bostic's trading and investing broke central bank rules, and Bostic created the appearance he acted on confidential information and the appearance of a conflict of interest in violation of the Atlanta Fed's Code of Conduct. So this is very, very interesting. So basically, he is now retiring, and this is a very big shakeup in the central bank because you have to remember, Trump has been trying to fire Lisa Cook. All eyes were on her because she lied on her real estate form. And the Supreme Court right now is looking at this. But now we have Bostic leaving, which leaves an opening. And eventually when the Supreme Court says, yeah, we're going to get rid of you, Lisa Cook, that's going to leave two openings, which means Trump and the Patriots, we're going to be taking control over the Federal Reserve. He's going to have the people in place to do what? To restructure the entire system into the Treasury. Because I do believe this is the plan from the very, very beginning. When I say the beginning, I'm going all the way back to 2016. And I think Trump now is putting all the pieces together to actually wean us off of the Federal Reserve, restructure the Federal Reserve, push it into the Treasury, and we will create our own currency. Once again, we'll be in control of the creation of currency, and the private West Central Bank system will not, which means we will not be borrowing the currency with interest attached. We will bring in income from the tariff system. And yes, Trump is waiting for that ruling from the Supreme Court, because once he gets that, the central bankers are really screwed. And as we move forward and we actually have Congress in place where we have complete and utter control of the House, complete and utter control of the Senate, and we get rid of the Federal Reserve Act, and we actually remove the 22nd Amendment, or actually create another amendment to replace that, maybe another amendment on top of that, to actually say we should never, ever have a private West Central Bank ever again. I do believe this is going to make it completely and utterly impossible for the central bank to come back. Remember, Trump's mission is not to do business as usual, not to keep the system the way it is, because we've had this system. It doesn't work. Now, as we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing...
Okay, let me get past this commercial here.
Risk, consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. His entire motivation is to basically bring us back to the Constitution and actually prepare us for the future where the central bank can never, ever come back into existence. Because what would be the purpose of running for the election, going through all this crap? And when I say crap, I'm talking about Russia collusion, Alpha Bank hoax, impeachment number 1, number 2, all the indictments, a couple of assassination attempts, the judiciary trying to stop him just so he can keep everything the way it is. And when he leaves, we just go back to the way it was. It doesn't make any sense. So what he's going to do, he's going to push forward, and he's going to make sure that this never, ever happens again. And I do believe he is going to do it. But you could see the European Central Bank Governor Council member, Martin Kocher, said that, yeah, you know something? Trump's tariffs have hurt less than expected so far. We thought this was going to be a complete and utter disaster. He said, we have not seen the strong reduction in growth rates and the inflationary effects of the trade conflicts that were anticipated in March and April. So basically, the central bankers were completely and utterly wrong, and everything that they said has not come true. And what's going to happen right now is you're going to see the entire system get better and better and better. And this is the central bank's worst nightmare, because when people start to realize that we actually don't have to borrow the currency anymore to support this much smaller government, that we can use the tariff system to actually fund the much smaller government, and we can go back to sound money and we can get our buying power back. Well, once the people see this, and actually they see very, very cheap energy, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. Once the people see this, and they get their buying power back, when they don't have to pay taxes the way they're paying them now, people are going to go, holy crap, why do we ever have the central bank? It makes no sense whatsoever. And the central bank will never, ever be able to recover from all of this, because once the people are awake, it's game over for all of them. And you can see every day that passes, it just gets better and better and better. And you can see that with Trump's one big beautiful bill, he put certain things in there for the year of 2026. So when people get their tax returns and people start to realize, well, wait a minute, look, I have a lot more money. Energy's much lower. Inflation's not going up. I got the refunds that I thought I was going to get, plus a lot more because of the one big beautiful bill. This is absolutely incredible. This is what Trump actually is counting on, because you have to remember, the midterms are very, very important, especially to get rid of the central bank. And he knows how important it is. So what did he do? He set it up so basically when everything hits, people are going to feel absolutely incredible. And think about it, what's the other thing that's going to hit? All those investments that he was been talking about, they're all going to rush into this country, and the manufacturing plants are going to be built. People are going to get incredible jobs. And no, you don't have to wait for the manufacturing plants to be built, because, again, there's going to be jobs to build them, to build the roads. We need engineers. We need those people that work with plumbing and electrical. So, yes, there's going to be jobs, construction jobs, and then there's also going to be manufacturing jobs. So we're going to see a lot of this, and it's all going to hit in 2020. Waters off the state. So now Trump is going to start this up again. And again, yes, he needs permission from the state of California. If it's within 3 miles or so, if it goes beyond 3 miles, then he doesn't need the permission of California. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But it looks like he's planning to move forward with all of this, just like he's planning to move forward to actually spur the real estate industry by pushing 50-year mortgages. Now, a lot of people, they're all panicking and they're saying, oh, this is going to be awful. Look how much interest you're going to have to pay and everything like that. Yes, in a central bank system, yes, everyone can see that. But this is not business as usual. And actually, what's very interesting, and Last Refuge pointed this out, when was the last time someone owned a house for 50 years? The average is 7. The intent of the program is to drop the monthly mortgage payment, knowing the term of the loan doesn't matter because the ownership will be far less. It's an alternative. It's an option. It can help people. Think bigly, think different, and actually go beyond that. This is just going to get people into their homes that never could. And think about when we start to basically wean ourselves off the central bank, and just use the first part of it, where all of a sudden you don't pay income taxes. So that money could then go to actually pay off your mortgage a lot sooner. And we also gave an example where you can actually use that money to put it into Bitcoin or other investments like gold or silver, because that's going to continually rise. And you can make money. And again, yes, you're paying a lower payment, but think about it. Then go much further than weaning us off the income tax. Go to the part where Trump brings us back to sound money, gets rid of the central bank, pays off the central bank. Your buying power then returns.
Okay, I'm going to pause this again here and just give you an example here of how interest rates affect home buying. All right, right here's an example, a simple loan calculator, $200,000 at 5.5% interest for 30 years. The payment is $1,135. Okay? Right here, $200,000 at 3% interest. Those interest rates have to come down for 30 years, $843. That's a $300 a month difference. $1,135 compared to $843. Okay? That's all because of interest rate. Total interest paid, $103,000. Oops. $103,000 at 3% interest. Total interest paid, $208,000. So you're paying for the house twice. You're paying $200,000 for the house, and then $208,000 just on interest. Ta-da! The interest rates have to come down, and Donald Trump is trying his best to get them to come down. But he doesn't have the leverage on the Federal Reserve that he has in other areas. In fact, John F. Kennedy tried to bypass the Federal Reserve, and he wound up with a severe case of lead poisoning. I wonder why there's been 2 or 3 attempts on Donald Trump's life. Maybe it could be his policies. I don't know. Okay, let's jump back here. And we do have some time left. I started a little early because I wanted to get some extra information in here for you. Let's jump down here to Wendy Bell, her program from today, Everything's a Smokescreen. I believe she's right. Let's see what she has to say about that.
It is magic how the Democratic Party can waste $1.5 trillion in just 42 days. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, we probably shouldn't be talking about the cost of things. We probably shouldn't be squawking about how much a Happy Meal costs or the cost of a gallon of gas or an airplane ticket, when what we should be doing is figuring out how much our poor acting lawmakers are squandering our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And isn't it always wild how the IRS never thinks about ways to save you money or cut the code, shrink down all of the rules and the Trump in the Oval Office applauding, these optics, like I get it. I get you've got the president of the United States sitting behind the Resolute desk. I get that this is the moment that the shutdown is officially over. Having the entire, caucus there behind him. Okay, whatever. We just want action. We just want people who don't suck, right? More than the photo op. This is what he said. He reads a troubling email. Excuse me. He says this. He says, Democrats held America hostage. And he says to extort this amount of money that I don't think you and I realized. I sure didn't when I heard it first. Listen to this.
For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions. They wanted to pay them $1.5 trillion, which would have really hurt our healthcare businesses and our recipients at levels never seen before. Today, we're sending a clear message that we will never give in to extortion, because that's what it was. They tried to extort. The Democrats tried to extort our country.
100%. And thankfully for that shutdown, we all got to see all of the nuance the Democrat Party didn't want you to know. They tried to squeeze in their rebuttal to the continuing resolution. And I thought maybe we'd lost a couple $100 billion, which is just like mind-bending numbers. It's almost like funny money. It's monopoly money. It's just add another 3 zeros and call it a day, right? But this is where the president says, no, this actually has real dollars and cents implications. And there's no way for us to be able to project now moving forward because of this 6-week lapse of productivity. There's no way for us to be able to predict future earnings or how business is doing. The Democrats screwed that up. Here's the president.
Over the past 7 weeks, the Democrats' shutdown has inflicted massive harm. They caused 20,000 flights to be canceled or delayed. They departed so many times, so late. People were hurt so badly. Nobody's ever seen anything like this one. This was a no-brainer. This was an easy extension. But they didn't want to do it the easy way. They had to do it the hard way. And they look very bad, the Democrats do. They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid, and the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately, including the serious harm that they did to our economy and to people and to families. So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country.
How many times have I said that? Maybe not about this shutdown, but about all of it. Never forget what they did to you. Never forget what they did to you with COVID. Never forget how they lied to you about January 6th. Never forget how they browbeat you about 2020. Never. And finally, he says, with Republicans gathering around him in the Oval Office around the desk, he drops this nuclear warhead.
I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again. And don't forget, we have another date coming up in the not too distant future. We can never let this happen again. And we should be able to pass great, really great legislation. So I say terminate the filibuster because, by the way, the Democrats will do it immediately if they ever assumed office, which hopefully they won't.
And I think that is the part that is the most salient. We've seen the abject, criminality of people in Congress. The lies, all of the stuff that was foisted upon this country because of Barack Obama, their shiny metal object, who had absolutely no skills, who brought nothing to the table. He was black. That was enough for them. And a lot of fools, particularly white, college-educated liberal chicks, felt I've got to begin with the story that nobody else is talking about. Don't forget what they did to you with that virus. Don't forget what they did to you because it started 10 years ago. This wasn't just some lab issue. This wasn't some natural event, the coronavirus. They looked for it. They found a bug that they could manipulate, and they asked the right people to do it.
Yep.
Why ever would that be? And how is Barack Obama's CIA and Director of National Intelligence involved in all this? Oh, my. We've got a little nugget to share with you, and we shall. You won't want to miss it next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Okay, I'm going to move this up here past her station break. Be back about the 34, 35-minute mark. Let's see where we are here. All right. Let's kick it up here and let's go.
And say it, it's you.
Here we go. Enjoy. Come on, you can do it. Come on, Rumble. There you go.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program. So many of these stories, if you can imagine a snowball rolling, right? When you're out with the kids, when you're younger, and you're like, okay, let's roll. Come on, let's make a snowman. And you move it around, it gets bigger and it gets big. Well, if it goes down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger. You got a giant snowball coming your way. Because everything that's happened literally since probably right before Barack Obama left office is a cover-up. It's a cover-up, whether it's of Hillary and the Clinton Crime Family Initiative and the hundreds of millions of dollars that were pledged to this initiative, right? Yep. This quote-unquote nonprofit whose do-goodery we know nothing about. I mean, very little about. Where'd the money go? Why did it dry up after she lost? Oh, wait, what? And how that was all the Russia collusion garbage was all a cover-up of her private email server, which she needed if she was going to circumvent the government and be making side deals with other countries. Here, I'll give you $10 million if you remember me when you come into office. Absolutely. All of this is a cover-up. And then literally the guy who inserts himself into the middle of it and becomes the persona non grata and the person everybody should hate, Donald Trump, with Melania behind him, right? Coming down the golden escalator. And I just recently listened to what he said that day when he made it official that he was going to run for the first time. He's like, I love this place. This is a beautiful country, but it's on the wrong path. And I really don't think there's anybody else out there who has the ability, the knowledge, the background, the financial independence to withstand a firestorm. And I got to do this. None of these stories would ever exist if these Democrats, with Republican help, weren't so damn dirty. But this one takes us back to 2015. Would you guys believe me if I told you Barack Obama's CIA quite likely asked Ralph Barrick, you know that name, because I talked to you about it a lot during COVID, this guy from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, to help them on a project using coronaviruses. 2015, 5 years before all this jazz happened. Would you believe me? Of course you would, because you know you will never forget. Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge breaking this. The CIA met with Ralph Barrick in 2015 to discuss coronavirus evolution and possible human adaptation. Wait a minute. Who was the CIA director back then? Oh, wait a minute. It was John Brennan. That's so weird. It's so weird. Who's in the crosshairs right now being investigated and subpoenaed? Oh, that's right. That'd be John Brennan, right? Do you think maybe they have all the goods on this? I'm going to go with yeah. I want to read this to you. New documents released by Senator Rand Paul offer a potential smoking gun regarding American complicity in the creation of COVID-19. All right, so have we just hop, skipped, and jumped past the whole natural origins thing? It was so weird. It had to be some kind of a, I don't know. Was it a bat? Was there some soup involved? What happened? This never happens in a lab. And we were all like, seriously? You think we're going to fall for that? And this right here, he admits. Smoking gun regarding American complicity in the creation of COVID-19. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your government, years before it happened, wanted to concoct something for whatever reason. We'll keep it on the back burner. Nothing says, we can take you out like a virus that can kill a lot of people. Hey, Ralph, I'm just thinking that maybe you can help me out. You're good at this researching stuff with viruses and whatnot. I know it's what you do over there at UNC Chapel Hill. And I'm thinking maybe we could work on something going on here. 10 years ago, this started, ladies and gentlemen. New documents show that intelligence risked implicating the Office of the Director of National Intelligence's own bioengineering advisor. Did you know that Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina back in 2015 was working for the feds as their bioengineering advisor? Brock, did you know that? I didn't know that. Had no idea. Barrick, who engineered novel coronaviruses with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Who? I don't know anything about Ralph Barrick. I've never heard that name before. Oh, how about Peter Daszak from EcoHealth Alliance? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. You know the guy that has 19,000 bat coronavirus samples somewhere in a freezer at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where we're working with the Communist Chinese Party? What? And so this is me saying, dang, our government's dirty as stones. No wonder other countries hate us. The professor's ties to American intelligence may run even deeper. Ralph Barrick's. Interesting. The documents reveal, as the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, who was the Director of National Intelligence? Oh, James Clapper. It's so weird these people are all connected, huh? The professor's ties to American intelligence may run even deeper, documents reveal, as the Office of the Director of National Intelligence facilitated a meeting between the CIA and Ralph Barrick about a project. Got a little research project for you, Ralphie, on coronaviruses in September of 2015. Kind of like your rainy day fund. This is that virus. We'll keep it on the back burner. 5 years later, the email exchange with the subject line, request for your expertise, shows an unnamed government official with a CIA-affiliated email address. Pitching a possible project to Barrick 10 years ago relating to coronavirus evolution and possible natural human adaptation. The new documents add to the growing body of evidence that our own intelligence agencies knew more about the threat posed by manipulating bat COVID in a lab than they told the public. Wait, what? Wait. But Tony Fauci told us every single day for like 3 years, right? That's not in a lab. That happened in nature. And then, of course, all of the people who were going to sign something that said, it seems like it came from a lab. And he's like, oh, really? I'm the director of the NIAID. I manage $9 billion worth of grant money. And you want to do what again? With whose money? And then everybody was like, yeah. It came from nature, right? Meanwhile, you and I are just getting sick, right? And they've known about this, of course, because their hands are all over it. Senator Paul now seeking more documents from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That would be Tulsi Gabbard. Hey, Tulsi, I got some needs. In fact, let's see what exactly he sent to Tulsi Gabbard. Dear Director Gabbard, this is Ron Paul. As chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, I write to request records related to the committee's ongoing investigation into the origins of COVID-19 and risky life sciences research. Senator Paul, you do not know what you were talking about. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having flashbacks. The Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs has jurisdiction over government information and the duty of studying the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness of all agencies and departments of the government, right? Over the course of our investigation into COVID, I've obtained information that leads me to believe the intelligence community is in possession of records critical to the committee's ongoing inquiry. For example, in a September 2015 email, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the CIA contacted Dr. Ralph Baric, a scientist who collaborated with the Wuhan Institute of Virology to discuss a possible project relating to coronavirus evolution and possible natural human adaptation. January 23rd, 2020, 5 years later, Dr. Baric was asked by the sponsor, aka the CIA, to give a presentation on the current coronavirus situation at a meeting the following week, and is moving forward and telling us that, very interestingly, all these emails show that Ralph Baric and Peter Daszak at EcoHealth Alliance and the Bat Lady, Zhijing Li, or however the hell you say that woman's name, and all of these people knew that that Wuhan Institute of Virology, which had really subpar safety and security practices, was going to be the place where they were going to use your taxpayer dollars to take a virus and fiddle with it. The furin cleavage site, all these things that were in our memory for the last several years, the spike protein. What can we do to make this more lethal for people? Now, what kind of sinister, barbaric, evil monster does that? Apparently, your CIA. Ew. And this now is all coming out. Why was the ODNI talking to Ralph Baric in January 2020 about the possibility of a research accident if Tony Fauci was telling the world all that time that it wasn't a lab leak? It was a natural origins thing. It was this weird thing that happened. And we're following it. We've got our best people on it. That's called lying. And under oath, we call that perjury. And before Joe Biden left office, somebody, certainly not Joe, somebody wielding the auto pen managed to include Fauci and date his exoneration of whatever he had done all the way back to January 1st of 2014. It's almost like everybody there who needed to steal an election because there's no way Hillary was going to win thanks to you and 63 million of your closest friends. This was their little back burner surprise. And they foisted it not just upon you and on me, but on the world.
Yep.
And more than 10 million people have died. These numbers to Democrats are almost like their ambivalence to the amount of money they cost us with the government shutdown. They don't care. They need to stay in power.
That's right.
And if that means using science, stealing elections, taking a shot at a presidential candidate on a stage in front of thousands of people, so be it. Disgusting, but not over.
All right, I'm going to pause that there. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you. She's getting ready to go into a break anyway. I heard the background music. All right.
Shut down.
This video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up, and she definitely puts things into perspective, doesn't she, folks? Okay, let's take a quick break here before we wrap it up and listen to some information about crypto.com. Great stuff here.
Let's be clear, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging, it's here. And this latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform.
They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there.
Want in on the action? Head to crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again.
Alrighty, let's jump back here, and I've just copied the live chats into a comment so that they will be permanent with this video. There we go. That's just how easy it is to make a comment, folks. Alright, and let me remind you that these videos that I shared with you are videos that come directly from the producers. We've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the channels. And these videos that I've shared with you tonight are videos that I've posted on Murtech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic and truth videos, the kind of information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media, because they're lying to you. We've given you numerous examples of that this evening. I'd like to share all this information with you, but I don't have time. I started a little early, run past my 9 o'clock. It's because there's just so much information out there that we need to be aware of, that your friends and your contacts and your family members need to be aware of. So I hope you share this out. I hope you happen to mention something to people about, it's interesting that the news keeps saying that this Thanksgiving is more expensive than last Thanksgiving, yet the sale prices don't indicate that. When you go to the grocery store, you don't get that. You know, just kind of put a little doubt in their mind is, well, I wonder why the mainstream media is saying that. Because they're freaking liars, okay? That's why. All right, let me jump over here to my Murtech Daily News Wrap-Up. And I've got the playlist. I've got it started here. I'm going to start off with some Benny Johnson. We're going to finish what we started with Wendy Bell and move on with some other great information. American Journal, Dinesh D'Souza, the Charlie Kirk Show, American Center for Law and Justice, Robert Gouveia, Dr. Steve Turley, a ton of information in here, folks. So you don't want to miss this. If you're interested in hearing the truth, you might want to go ahead and join me here at 9:30. But go ahead and take a break, because it's going to take me a few minutes to go ahead and get this lined up, set up my Rumble studio. So, yeah, take a break, grab a donut, a cup of coffee, grab a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here, and we'll get this started. This will go throughout the night. You know, I try to be on top of it, but, sometimes I'm laying here watching the Rumble on my TV, and sometimes I doze off. So, I used to share this information from YouTube, but YouTube, for some reason, I don't think liked me sharing the information like this, putting all this truth together in one little package, and they would just freeze up on me. But I've been sharing this information from Rumble now for a couple of weeks, and I have not had one single problem. Just plays. Truth bomb, truth bomb, truth bomb, truth bomb. Okay, so as I said, go ahead and take a break. Let me get this all set up for you. Come back and join me so we can get to hear some more great information. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being with me. Hopefully, I will get to see you later, and may God bless.